tutti ragazzi, Luca here. Rome and Milan, the two biggest cities in Italy, the political and economic capitals of the country, two completely different metropolis in terms of history, culture, tradition. Yeah, we all know Milan has a much bigger economy with more job opportunities in general, while Rome is more famous for its breathtaking historic city center. But we all know this more or less. Today, instead, I want to focus on 4 untold differences between the two and discuss them with you guys, starting from the perspective of myself, born and raised in Rome, but I went numerous times to Milan, including a 1-month study stay. Yes, being Italian, I am well aware of the huge rivalry between people from Rome and people from Milan, but today I don't want this to be a race, a competition. I want to focus on these untold differences and then discuss them with you guys in a transparent way in the comment section. So let's dive in.
Those who have followed the channel since the beginning of our journey know this very well. For me, everything starts with geography. I said this numerous times because this is a discipline capable of explaining things that would be otherwise absolutely incomprehensible. And if we really want to understand the untold differences at the core, at the essence of Rome and Milan, we have to start from here.
Milan is located in the center of the Po Valley, one of the biggest plains in Italy and in Europe. Therefore, the municipality is completely flat. And this is something that for people like me who come from a city full of hills and mountains, it's weird. It's a weird effect and not a pleasant one. It's just plains and flat as far as the eye can see. It's like Oklahoma or Nebraska, just for you to understand. On the other hand, this was a great advantage in the past and even today. Milan has greatly benefited in its history from the fact that with all this flat land, the communications in terms of people and goods with the rest of the country and Europe is very, very good. Yes, on the other hand, it's not a pleasant effect. It's very boring to see because it's all plains. Furthermore, the distance of the city from the sea created a very continental climate which has very cold and long winters and short summers, but sometimes incredibly hot, especially now with the global warming. In general, even people from Milan say that Milan doesn't have a good climate, and sometimes Romans joke about this, saying that in Milan there is always fog, which used to be true, but again with the global warming also fog, which was a characteristic of Milan weather, has decreased a lot in recent years.
In contrast, Rome is located 350 miles southeast of Milan with its westernmost neighborhoods overlooking the Tyrrhenian Sea, and the climate is generally Mediterranean with the very mild winters, sometimes rainy, and summers that used to be not incredibly hot. But we have to say though that with the climate changing in the last 15 to 20 years, summers have actually become incredibly scorchingly hot, with temperatures exceeding 40 degrees for even 50-60 days per year in the months of July and August. The landscape of Rome is its point of strength, in my opinion. It's beautiful and hilly, with these hills running alongside the Tiber River and making again the landscape so unique, not flat but with a lot of variety. And from these hills you can actually take beautiful pictures from many parts of the city. You can take beautiful pictures of the city center and of the most beautiful corners of Rome. This is actually an incredible point of strength.
obviously it would take years to discuss the history of Rome and Milan, and this is absolutely not the purpose of this video. So before haters start commenting like crazy, Luca, you didn't mention this, you didn't say that, as it happened in the video about the differences between northern and southern Italy that I recommend you watching, and I link the video in the description down below. Before you do that, let's wait and listen to me. I don't want to discuss the history of the cities, I just want to focus on certain historical aspects of Rome and Milan that, in my opinion, still have a huge influence on the life of 2024 in these two cities. So let's start.
Something that foreigners, but also many Italians, don't know is the fact that Rome, until 150 years ago, when the city was named the capital of the newly unified Kingdom of Italy in 1870, was just a little bit more than an insignificant village in central Italy ruled by the Pope. I know it's hard to believe, but this area around us between the Colosseum and the Roman Forum, after the fall of the Roman Empire in the 5th century AD, this area was nearly abandoned. There was nothing here. This was countryside. People did not live here. The few people that actually inhabited Rome, which was considerably smaller compared to other cities of Italy, such as Palermo, Naples, or Milan, for the entire length of the Middle Ages, but also parts of the modern ages. When Rome was named the capital of Italy in 1870, and then the population exploded, but before that Rome was less than 200,000 inhabitants, small compared to other Italian cities. And Rome was not only small, but was also quite isolated culturally and socially from the rest of the country. The Pope's oppression on the culture of the people make these people, let's say, in many ways backward compared to the inhabitants of a city like Milan, which was in the center of the Po Valley, lots of communication with Northern Europe, the Enlightenment, and many other aspects. So again, Rome was backwards, a city surrounded by swamps, so very isolated from the rest of the country. But this being isolated and this being backwards in many aspects of cultural and social life, and I want to go in depth with this point in the next part of the video, this being backward also contributes, even today in 2024, incredibly contributes to its authenticity, to its charm.
History of Milan in the last 2 centuries has unfolded in a completely different way. In 1861, when Italy unified, Milan was already by far one of the biggest cities in Italy in terms of population and the biggest economy. Milan was also the birthplace of the Italian Enlightenment and of the Italian Industrial Revolution of late 19th century. This created a very cosmopolitan city in which people from all across Italy and Europe came to work and live. And this is an aspect that has remained a distinctive part of the Milanese society up until the present day. But I want to focus on this a little bit more in the next points. Every city has its own vibe, its own atmosphere, and this is something that even if you are in that specific city for a very short period of time, you feel something that is particular of that specific city. And precisely because of the huge differences in terms of history and geography, the difference in the atmosphere that you can find in Rome or Milan, it's huge. You couldn't feel more difference than that.
Rome for better or worse, is still a very authentic city with a particularly specific identity that you can feel through the people, the places, roads, monuments, many other aspects that make you realize that you are in the city of Rome. And again, it feels very authentic. Also, when you go around the city center, one of the most beautiful in the world, you realize that it has never been touched by modernity. You walk through the narrow streets of the city center and you go back in time, and you have this specific feeling, even in 2024. It's very recognizable, and you can feel this identity even if you go in less centric parts of the city, where 95% of the people, including me, live in the suburbs. Even there, with the food, people talking in dialect, or at least with a strong Roman accent, you can feel the authenticity of being in Rome. Many people from Milan and other cities in Italy, they always say Rome is not up to the standards of a modern European capital. And you know what? They're absolutely right. Rome is a complete mess. The traffic, the corruption, the general organization of the city is terrible. We have so many problems, and sometimes the quality of life can be horrible. That's absolutely true. We are not up to the standards of a modern European capital. Milan is up to these standards, much more modern, efficient. But the fact that Rome is so backwards in many aspects makes it so special, so charming, as I said before.
Milan is the exact opposite. If you went to Milan, for example, in 2004, and now you came back in 2024, 20 years after, believe me, you would not recognize the same city. You would think we're talking about the same city. Unlike Rome, for better or worse, Milan in the last 20 years has been completely overwhelmed by modernity. The city center is completely covered in skyscrapers and futuristic buildings that have completely obscured, metaphorically but also materially, the ancient city. Milan is a cosmopolitan vortex full of opportunities. It's a mess in which millions of people from the rest of Italy and also Europe come to study and to work, because there are many job opportunities, and also the services are very good, the public transportation, and there is any kind of possible activity that, for example, a millennial person can ever desire. It's full of things to do. On the other end, and I know that there are many Milanese people, especially 50 plus, who agree with me, I think the city has lost a lot of its identity, a lot of its real essence. The city doesn't have a real recognizability anymore. When you walk around the city center of Milan, apart from some historical landmarks, you could be in any other Middle Europe city. There is not much of a difference. For example, the local dialect, and this is a clear symptom, has completely disappeared. No one in Milan speak the ancient Lombard dialect anymore. And in general, many tourists say, because I'm also a tour guide, many tourists say, I didn't feel a lot of identity. I didn't feel, again, a recognizability, something that they would never say about Rome, which is terribly organized, and as I say, and has so many more problems than Milan, but it doesn't have a identity problem, which I think Milan has. But let me know in the comments what do you think about this specific aspect if you ever travel to Milan. Everything we have said so far has contributed in a decisive way in these differences when it comes to the way of living, of speaking, of working, the way of perceiving life in general that you can find in Rome and Milan. But before specifically talking about the people, we have to clarify a very, very important point that most of foreigners ignore. Yes, in Rome you find millions of people from abroad, especially tourists, billions of tourists. But that's a different way, because most of the people, the bulk of the Roman society, they are either born in Rome or they've been living there for quite a while, so they feel kind of Romans, even if they're not originally from Rome. Milan is completely different. In Milan you have people coming and going every day, every week, every month from all across Europe, and especially from the rest of Italy, especially southern Italy, because for foreigners that maybe don't know, Milan underwent a massive migration of people from southern Italy that has been going on for 80 years. Is one of the most important social phenomena in the Italian history, and this is something I want to make a video about, so let me know in the comments if you're interested. So in Milan you find majority of the people that, for example, they're studying or working there, but they're from southern Italy, and maybe they moved there 1 month ago, 3 months ago, so they are not Milanese. They speak different languages, dialects, they have completely different cultures. So in Milan the perception of the authentic Milanese society is very, very diluted. This is something so different from Rome that you have to be very aware of.
There are, in any case, some very recognizable differences between the two. Romans tend to be more open, friendly, but also particularly sarcastic. Romans are famous for making jokes about every aspect of life: the traffic, the corruption, the terrible organization of the city, but also about terrible things of life such as grief and death. We are like that. We're very cynic from a certain point of view, Romans also tend to work less hours, to be more chilled at work, also because most of the jobs in Rome are from the public sector, and in public offices, Milanese people always make fun of this, and they're right. In public offices in Rome, life is very chilled. The people don't work long hours, and in fact, again, people from Milan always say people of Rome, they don't really work the way we are, and I think they're right in general, with some recognizable exceptions.
In Milan, on the other hand, job competition is frightening. People come from all across the world and also Europe, Italy, to get these very, very well-paid jobs in the private sector. People work very long hours to get a promotion, and this also has an influence on sociality. People tend to have a less everyday social life. Yes, then there are many nightclubs and clubs and restaurants and aperitivo places, but in general, in the average day, people from Milan are much more colder compared to the ones from Rome. This is again a little bit because of the stress that you feel in the city, a little bit because in general people from the north of Italy are colder than people from central and southern Italy. Just to make you understand the difference between the two, in Rome shops still do the siesta. So, for example, from 2 to 4, most of the shops in Rome are closed. Some bars, some other kind of shops, hardware shops, they're closed. They do the siesta. In Milan, this would be absolutely unthinkable. It's much, much more similar to what you would find in Paris or London or Berlin or whatever.
This is it for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know in the comments which city you prefer and for what specific reason, Rome or Milan. See you in the next one, but don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Ciao ciao ragazzi. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know in the comments what do you think about the freaking hammer. The freaking hammer.
Per entrare a visitare dove si
Di là, dall'altro lato, mi pare. Qui, io guardi, non ci sono stato, ma no, qui è chiuso. Qui è chiuso. Sì.
E allora dove dobbiamo andare?
Non lo so, penso di là. Io non ci sono entrato che sto facendo un'altra cosa, quindi non lo so, ma qui è chiuso. Sì.